Stephen Gureño, KO Artist Sports, right here with my tocayo, Stephen Espinoza. Good to see you, man. Here we are, Sebastian Fundora, headlining again, Dignity Health. Man, I feel like even when he's in the ring, he might be kind of taller than most of the seats when we're there. Have you ever seen a fighter? I want to say the last I could even remember is like a Paul Williams, maybe, who was like way taller, than his weight class.
Yeah, that's the one that sticks out. I mean, you could say maybe Celestino Caballero, who was the super bantam, junior feather, yeah. But at 6'6", 6'7", it's him and Paul Williams, and and even those guys didn't quite. I mean, there's some similarities in Paul Williams' style and Sebastian's, in that they don't fight like you would expect tall guys to fight, and they a lot of activity. Paul probably maybe fought a little bit more at distance. He had a great jab, but I don't think he had the inside fighting that Fundora likes. And the way Sebastian likes to fight on the inside, that's what makes it, sort of unique. His height and his style. Because the two things are sort of not what you would expect.
Right. It's very fan-friendly style as well. So, I mean, fans are in for a treat this Saturday, definitely. I want to get into it, man. We got a couple weeks. We got a big one finally. Tank versus Ryan. It's happening. It's all done. What, just for you, when it's signed, sealed, and delivered on the Showtime side, is that what was that feeling like? Is that Ryan's side is signed, Tank's side is signed? What's that like? We got it.
It's a real relief, but it's not like, it's a relief like, okay, great, now it's done. It's a relief, but it means it's the start of all the work. I mean, the negotiating process is obviously its own process and can be painful and long and exhausting sometimes. But there's not much time once you sign it to sort of relax and to sort of celebrate it, because then you move quickly into, okay, now, as people know with pay-per-views, it's a 8 or 10 or 12 week sprint to the finish line. It's sort of like putting together your mini Super Bowl in a 10-week period of time. So then next thing you know, you sign, and then you're immediately, before you can even catch your breath, saying, okay, let's schedule a press conference. Let's start laying out the promotional schedule. Let's start talking to venues, all of those kinds of things. So look, it's, you really don't really get to really realize what all is happening. It's all happening so fast until it's sort of like you blink and then you're at fight night.
It's over.
Yeah.
A lot's been made of the rehydration clause that Tank and Ryan have. Ryan did agree to it. He agreed to the weight. He agreed to the rehydration clause afterwards. What's your take on it being such a big deal, I guess, in a fight of this magnitude?
Well, look, I think it's more gamesmanship. I think it's sort of psychological warfare more than anything else, both in terms of, the actual clause itself and then, bringing it up. I think this is a way. I'm not sure that Ryan has all that much trouble with the weight or with the rehydration, as much as it's something to sort of get under Tank's skin about. Because look, he's a big guy. He's a young guy. I'm sure like he's going to outgrow, 35 and 40. Relatively quickly. But at the end of the day, look, the Fortuna fight was at 135, and it was only above 135 because of Fortuna, not because of Ryan. So the reality is, like that was a while ago, and he's growing, so I'm sure. But like, if there was, he's got enough professional advisors around him, and he's experienced enough. It was really going to be a disadvantage. He wouldn't have agreed to it, at the end of the day. So look. Ryan is not the kind of guy who's gaining 20 or 25 pounds overnight anyway. And, people sort of look at the rehydration, and it's Saturday morning. It's not Saturday 4 p.m., it's not Saturday 6 p.m., it's Saturday morning. So, yeah, you have to be careful depending where it was. But, look, I don't think it's going to play a role, from my perspective. Now, Ryan's the better one. He knows better than me about what his difficulty is with making weight. But at the end of this, look, I think at the end of the day, those guys, if you told these guys to fight at 133, they would do it because that's how much you want this fight.
No, it's a big one. I think a lot of people want it as well, which probably pushed it over the line even regardless of those things. Man, I've been hearing the rumors. I'm sure you've been seeing the rumors. I know you're smiling. You know what I'm talking about. June 17th. You want to give me some good news?
I will give you some good news, probably not the good news that you want. The good news is that they're still talking and we're still getting close. Now, I know people have been saying that, and I've been saying that for a while, but I think, we've come close before. So I think everyone's sort of like, we're not going to be all that optimistic until we get to the finish line, because, it's one of those where it's a delicate situation and, one item can blow it all. And that's, it was only one or two items that sort of cratered the fight last fall. So, we're getting close. It's not done until it's done. June 17th, I don't know where that is coming from. Like, that's a date that keeps coming up. Look, that's not any date that I've heard, and not a date that's come up in the negotiation. And in any event, I'm not saying that it couldn't be that date, but it really depends on when the negotiation is done. So picking a date before you've sort of signed is sort of backwards. You're putting the cart before the horse. You don't want to set up an artificial deadline. What if the deal drags on a little bit longer? We saw that with Tank and Ryan. It dragged on a little bit at the end, and we were fortunate enough that we had an extra week and we pushed it a week. So, look, I don't think the date will be set until we're literally ready to sign, and, it doesn't mean it's not going to be in the near future. I think if it does happen, it will be this summer. It won't be much longer after June 17th if it happens. That's my prediction. Of course, it depends on when the deal gets done. But I think the best case scenario, or the best news I have for you, is that people are talking. There's still progress being made. It's substantive, it's productive, and there's progress. And that's all it takes. As long as we're like moving, each day making a little bit of progress, then I think that's the best news that fight fans can hear.
That's a bit. I mean, it's maybe the only news, and maybe a little better than not good, right?
It's the only actual factual news. People can put up Instagram graphics and do whatever they want and break news, but when you hear it from an official source, that's when you know it's official.
Is there truth to the rumor, since we're dispelling rumors, that Spence and Crawford have been in dialogue with each other, and maybe is that how this negotiation started as well, is that they were kind of in dialogue with each other?
There have been discussions between them, like, hey, look, neither one of them, that's not how the deal's going to get done. But look, they're both experienced guys, they're both intelligent guys, and if there's coming to a point where like you're sort of at an impasse, sometimes, a fighter wants to pick up the phone and like, look, let me get to the bottom of this and settle it myself. So, I think that's happened one or two occasions. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but, for people to sort of think, oh, these guys are there, typing up contracts and negotiating top to bottom. That's what they have the teams for. But again, I give them credit, because that just shows that they are motivated, they are interested, and if it takes getting on the phone with the guy you're going to fight to sort of cut through all the positioning and say, no, really, like, what is it that you want? Here's what I want. I think that is an example. It's sort of symbolic of how badly these guys want a deal to be done, is that they'll get on the phone themselves.
Is just to maybe to talk to boxing fans about, obviously we've been here before, we've had this conversation before, and then it didn't work out, right? Is there any difference this time around that you see, like, okay, maybe we've gotten over some of the things that prior negotiations didn't work out, and now, I don't see the past issues being an issue this time around? Is that maybe part of it?
I think, I think the difference this time is that, the first time failed and people had to sort of deal with that, and everyone was sort of motivated by this really, there's a lot of regret after it felt, not sort of regret about how one side carried on the negotiation or the other, but just like, wow, we came close. It was a missed opportunity. It really sucks that we couldn't get it done. So then, that sits with you for a while, and then you come back and you say, okay, maybe I can sort of bend a little bit more to the place of discomfort, because that's really what it takes. Is you get to a point where you're like, this is as far as I'm comfortable going, and in some cases, maybe even a little bit further than I'm comfortable going. Now it's sort of like after you've sat on it and, and dealt with it for weeks and weeks, and you come back, you're like, well, look, I really didn't want to face the prospect of this thing actually not happening. Let me go back and see if there's any possible way there's like a little bit more I can give here, or I can live with something different, or let's be creative this way. So I think it's just sort of like, hey, it's none of the new points, it's nothing different. It's just sort of like, hey, can we make another effort, and maybe you can give 2% and I can give 2%, he can give 2%, and we get to the point where we're close enough to get it done.
Well, it sounds good. I mean, I got my hopes up before, but yeah, I think we all have, right? So,
and that's why I want to be conservative, because I was on record all last fall saying, look, I'm optimistic, and I'll go on record again and say I am optimistic. I'm not going to give a percentage. I'm not going to say it's 60, 70, 80% likely to be done, because look, I don't want to go out, but I am encouraged by what I've seen so far.
That's great. That's great to hear, man. It's great for boxing fans. I'm sure they're relieved.
Look, and if we get a run like this, and there's some great other fights happening, but if you just look at the Showtime schedule and we go from Benavidez Plant to Tank versus Ryan and then to Spence Crawford, those are, if you got one or two of those fights in a given year, most boxing fans will be thrilled. To get three of them in a span of maybe 3 or 4 months, I mean, it's a fantastic development.
Credit to you for hopefully the schedule work. Already the first two are great. That was actually going to be